Getting the smile and confidence you've been dreaming about, all from the comfort of your home, isn't a total mystery with Bite clear aligners. Just don't be surprised if all your friends start asking, "What's your secret?" Begin by ordering your at-home impression kit today for only $14.95. Bite clear aligners are doctor-directed and delivered to your door. Treatment costs thousands less than braces, plus they offer flexible financing, accept eligible insurance, and you can pay with your HSA FSA. Get 80% off your impression kit when you use code WONDERY at Byte.com. That's BYTE.com. Start your confidence journey today with Byte.
Acast powers the world's best podcasts. Here's a show that we recommend.
What is The Briefing Room? It's a behind-the-scenes look at how the criminal justice system works and the lives of the people within that system.
If you love true crime, well, these are the real people who do the job every day of making sure justice is served.
Hi, I'm Detective Dave.
I'm Detective Dan. Together, we have decades of experience in local law enforcement, a profession that we think is often misunderstood.
So we're going to explore how to do it right, and we won't shy away from when it's done wrong. These are stories you'll hear nowhere else. Unique, frank, and unvarnished.
From the team that brought you Small Town Dicks, this is The Briefing Room. Episode 1 drops on August 30th.
We'll meet you in the briefing room.
Acast helps creators launch, grow, and monetize their podcasts everywhere. Acast.com.
And welcome back to Scarred for Life, the podcast where we open up old wounds by looking back at the films that scared us as kids. I'm Terry.
And I'm Mary Beth.
And each episode, our special guest brings with them a movie that traumatized them as a child.
This week, our guest is artist Trevor Henderson. He does comic book and book cover illustrations, concept work and character design. He's an amazing artist, and he's also the creator of the character Siren Head, which you've probably seen on the internet. Hi, Trevor. Welcome to the show. We're so excited you're here.
Hey, thank you very much for asking me to come on and talk about stuff.
Thanks for joining us. We're both really big fans of your art. But before we do get into that, we always like to take it back to the very beginning. How did you get introduced to horror? I'm
going to talk about this more a little bit later because it ties into the movie I've brought in. But
okay. Everything
about horror that I've come to love and know is brought to me by my dad. My dad introduced me to horror at a very, very young age. Some would say a problematic age for a parent to introduce a child to.
Wait, what age though?
Oh, I mean like 9 or 10, maybe even a little bit earlier. Yeah. For some really heavy stuff.
4. Just kidding.
Oh, really? You could be. I'm sure there are people that early, but he'd always come home. He used to drive trucks till really late in the morning, delivering groceries to warehouses. And he'd come home and then he'd wake me up on school nights and then we'd sneak downstairs and I'd watch like the, gory 80s horror movies like Return of the Living Dead, Army of Darkness, which was a little bit lighter fare. Just everything like Fulci, Italian horror films, just like real gut muncher, like gore films.
Wow.
And then if my mom woke up, I'd hide behind the couch until she left watching. So he's the root of everything, every creative endeavor and my entire career and all of my interests basically was rooted in that practice of showing me hyper-violent 80s horror films when I was really young.
Wow.
Sweet.
I love that. And I love that your dad was introducing you to a lot of different kinds of horror because rude. Sorry, there's a car driving by.
No worries.
Sorry. Rude.
It was a loud one. The funny thing is with these mics, I can never tell if you guys hear it or not, but it's like, I just hear it and anyway. So what I love about that is that like my dad was the person that introduced me to horror, but a lot of it had to do with the sort of universal horror in like the 1930s and the 40s the 50s. So like finding the kind of, as you call the gut munchers or like the stuff that's a little bit above and beyond that kind of experience was always left to me. So I think that's amazing. Salute to your dad.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I mean, there was definitely the Universal monsters. I remember specifically Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein was
I love that movie.
Oh, it's so good and it's so funny. And
it's so funny.
You get the best of all worlds. You get like all the good monster stuff, and you get the actually really good comedy as well. So there was that as well. But yeah, he really brought me into the world of the video nasty as well.
Wow.
Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah. So I was just happy to, and I think it almost became like a weird competition eventually where I would be unfazed by something, and then he'd be like, well, check out this one. And then I'd be unfazed by that. So the tone kept ramping up, maybe subconsciously. He is the one.
That's amazing. And so what were a few of of your horror favorites when you were growing up?
So when I was growing up, when I was fully embroiled, like it used to be like, whatever my dad happened to be watching, he would show me it. So I have lots of bits and pieces of those when I was really young. But when I was, in my early teens, it'd be a weekend excursion. Every weekend, me and my dad would go out to the mall to, I don't know if you have it in the States, but used to be a chain called HMV, which was music and videos and all that stuff. And this company called Anchor Bay was in the midst at that time. You know what I'm going to say. Of releasing these beautiful clamshell VHS tapes in these big, like bulky boxes. And we would collect them all, pretty much all of them. And we'd get a new one every week. And then watch that together. And this was usually supplemented by a video rental store nearby that had a $5, 5 movies, 5 days policy, which is just gorgeous. That was like every weekend through my teens. It was very popular. But I watched every possible horror movie. But really, those Anchor Bay clamshells were the thing. That company, Anchor Bay, was making a point at the time of really releasing some of the 70s and 80s Italian horror films like Dario Argento and Lucio Fulci that hadn't got quite a huge widespread appeal. So on top of what I was watching at the video store, it was kind of those prestige titles of seeing like Deep Red for the first time, Zombie, Phenomena, Tenebrae, all that stuff that really like resounded with me.
Phenomena. Oh, yes. My favorite.
Best ending ever. The monkey.
That ending.
My God.
So good.
That monkey is everything to me. I love her so much. Inga, right?
Yes, you're right. Yeah.
Oh my God. She's the switchblade wielding chimpanzee. I want to tattoo of her on my body somewhere.
Oh my God, that'd be so good.
The best.
I love that is Dario Argento's favorite of his own films. He's like, that's where I nailed it, is the one with the monkey with the razor blade. Yes.
I mean, that ending is just,
oh yeah,
you can't get any better. Like, it's just from the moment she's in the house until the ending, it's just one what the fuckery into another, where it's like it has to have some like resolution, and it just keeps going. Yeah, and you're like, how far is he going to take this? Oh, now the monkey is slashing her face. Okay,
the monkey is introduced earlier. It is Chekhov's monkey, and it does pay off really well.
Chekhov's monkey who finds a knife in the trash.
They telegraph it all from like the first 15 minutes in, so it's not even that insane. Good. And I really love movies that are like, they can throw together stuff that's really wild. Like she talks to bugs and there's a serial killer. And also Donald Pleasance is there and the monkey has a razor blade. But because it's executed in a specific way, like, I mean, it's still ridiculous. I'm not going to say it's not ridiculous, but it's cohesive, I guess, when easily it could not be cohesive. It could just be a bunch of wild stuff thrown together.
I love Argento. And this is like, I have been going through a giallo journey for the past couple of months with Terry has been kind of guiding me through. So I've been watching a lot of Argento and I love him so much. He's so good.
I've wanted to do the same thing. I haven't taken the plunge yet because Shudder has been just pumping the giallo onto their page.
Oh, it's so good. It's been really amazing. We watched a lot of the ones that they have available streaming.
Yeah. I really want to see the Red Queen kills 7 times.
It's so good. That one is so good.
I've heard it's one of the best like giallo ever total. But I haven't seen it. I've only seen like a handful of like the kind of the basics. I want to expand that a lot.
That's a good one to expand
the ones
to.
On Shudder. Yes.
Yeah. Shudder is a godsend, honestly.
Seriously. So what was your first horror movie?
Oh my God. See, it's hard to say because my early memories are just kind of a mishmash of scenes.
Okay.
So it's hard to really pinpoint. God, it might be Evil Dead 2.
Wow.
It might be.
Oh my God.
Just thrown into the deep end.
Yeah. I think because the tone is so like Looney Tunes that one was really a little easier to manage. But God, was it Evil Dead 2? It might have been.
Wow.
I don't know.
That's a Looney Tunes movie to watch as a kid when you're like, am I supposed to be scared or laughing? And you're like, it's both. Welcome to genre.
And I distinctly remember watching, you know what? It actually might be Creepshow. Now that I think about it, it might be Creepshow.
Oh, okay.
But I have a really strong memory of watching Return of the Living Dead with my dad at like 3 a.m. on a Wednesday when I went to go to school the next day for like eighth grade.
Oh my God. I love that. That is that's so fun.
Yeah, it's so good.
Also, watching these movies at 3 a.m. Like, you're doing it at the best possible time. Like, it was probably dark in your house, and like all the lights are off, and it was late at night. Like, you had like the quintessential horror movie watching experience.
Absolutely. And also, like, I was at an age where it's all getting just mushed down into like a stew at the base of my brain.
Yep.
Just becoming like this compost for the rest of my life, I guess. Ideal.
Yeah. So, transitioning to being an adult, what would you say draws you to horror now? Is it the same thing that drew you to as a kid, or is it different things?
It's probably a bunch of stuff. There's definitely still that nostalgia from when I was a kid. It's like has all those warm and fuzzy memories associated with it, especially, you know, growing up on like 80s fare and then having like that kind of be like the stuff that's the focus of so much nostalgia these days. But also I really appreciate the horror genre as I grew older as a place where it's probably the best genre for like exploring ideas, probably like the most progressive genre, just like really tackling deeper issues, I guess. It's the best for that. And I think it has the most breadth out of all like, you know, genres to talk about stuff and just kind of play with those ideas. And I find that really interesting aside from, you know, just being like really cathartic pleasures.
Did horror movies scare you when you were a kid?
Yeah. Oh yeah. You know, imagery from various horror movies all kind of like teamed up to kick my ass when I was a kid, for sure.
So as an adult, do you still get that childhood fear at all, or are you jaded like the rest of us?
It's so rare. I'm pretty jaded. I gotta say, maybe the last time I felt that was It Follows. Was like the closest I've come to that, I think. Yeah, but it's really rare. More so, it's just an appreciation of like, you know, ideas and stuff, and like, well, that's cool imagery, but like, it's less so like really getting to me. But you know, everyone's fallible with jump scares and stuff.
Oh yeah, of course.
Yeah,
can't avoid that.
No. What are some of your favorite horror movies now as an adult?
My favorite ones now. Ooh, I would have to say I wrote down a few of these because I specifically thought I'd be asked this. Black Christmas, the original Black Christmas,
the
79 one, which I think is as an adult, that's the scariest. That might be the scariest movie I've ever seen.
It's so good.
The prank phone calls in that.
It's so fucking good. Oh my God.
It's so fucking good and so scary.
I watched that for the first time last year and I did not realize how fucking scary it was. I was like, it'll be a fun slasher. And I was like, this is repulsive, like in a good way, but like, holy shit.
That movie is a masterclass in just like this bleak tension. It's insane. And it kind of feels like it has a really, it blindsides people, I think. You don't think it's going to be like this because you think of slasher movies. I think of slasher movies as kind of like having that nostalgia, but also being like really tropey, not really having the ability to get to you and scare you. And then this one comes out and it's like the grandfather for like Halloween. And it's doing shit that is way more effective than that movie, I think, than everything that came after it. And it's more progressive.
Yeah.
And it has this restraint that you do not see, especially in the 80s slashers, that makes the terror in it so ambiguous, but so like all pervasive. The fact that the killer, you never see the killer, it's just this voice on the phone and the perspective you're looking through is so fucking scary. Just that eyeball in the door frame has haunted. Oh my
God.
Has haunted me since I was a kid. I swear. That's another one. I could have brought a Black Christmas, but I think you guys tackled that one already.
Yeah, we did. Yeah. Also, the obscene phone call in the beginning. Like the first time I watched the movie, I was not prepared for how sexual it was and how horrifying it was.
My God. Yeah.
It's a great movie.
But for other ones, I always say the three big horror movies I always recommend to people are Black Christmas, 1979, Ghost Watch. I don't know if you guys have seen that.
Oh my God.
Ghost Watch is so scary, and Noroi the Curse is the third one.
Oh my, Trevor, I knew that we were like, I know that on Twitter, like we were going to be friends.
Yeah.
And that's one of, I was like, he has to be a found footage person because all of his art is like found footage. And so thank you. Nor the Curse.
There's nothing else like it. There's nothing else quite like that one.
Nothing else like it.
I still need to watch it.
You do. It's
set
on
aside a
Shudder.
night. Set aside a night for it. It'll kick your ass. It's so good.
Koji Shirashi's movies are. Have you seen any more of his movies? Have you seen like?
I have.
Cult?
Yeah.
Okay.
Cult.
Cool.
I always confuse occult and cult because one is like kind of a jokey kind of like horror comedy kind of thing, and the other one is like actually really scary in a completely different way from Noroi.
Yes.
I think Cult is the one I like almost as much as Noroi, which is about a guy plotting to carry out a terrorist attack because God has told him to do it. And the person filming him becomes kind of implicit and kind of like buys into this idea. And then you finding out that, well, I won't spoil it, but
I won't say any more.
But it's the ending to Cult. If it's Cult, I think it's Cult.
It is Cult. It is Cult. I think I'm triple checking.
You know what? I actually think it's
sure.
I think it's occult. Actually, now that I'm thinking about it, either way, the ending to that.
Yes, everyone. Yeah. Occult is the scary one.
Occult is the scary one
with the terrorist attack, or like the plotting the terrorist attack.
Cult has some really incredible ghost designs in it, but it's like super jokey. Yeah. But the ending to Occult is one of the scariest things I've ever seen. Despite some effects work that's doesn't maybe hold up. I think it's scarier because of that. But
the effects are hilarious. But it's streaming. It's on YouTube. Everybody, if you want to check it out, it's available on YouTube. A lot of his movies are hard to find.
It's available in full, and also the soundtrack to that one is just incredible. Cannot recommend that one enough.
Okay, so you're a found footage person. You're a found footage lover.
I am.
Cool.
Like the entire direction my art has taken since like 2018 has been trying to capture the best singular moments from found footage horror movies that don't exist at all.
They do.
Thank you.
That's how I felt. Like, so my partner showed me your work and was like, look at this. And I was like, that's not scary. And then I saw something and I was like, just kidding. What the fuck? And so I've been following you ever since because it's like, I think it was the burned face man in the car. Was that his name?
The which one, sorry? In the car?
Was it burnt? No, the no face. It was always pictures of like cars or car accidents.
The dude with the upside down face.
Yeah, the dude with the upside down face. Sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. No, it's cool. Everyone, a bunch of people have told me they like that one. I got to do more with that guy. I like him a lot.
So like now we're transitioning into your artwork. So, okay, how did you get started in the art world? Have you always wanted to be an artist? Like what has the journey been like for you as an artist?
I've wanted to be, an artist since I was a little kid. And then I kind of transitioned that towards specifically Illustrator after seeing some universities, going to some like art shows and whatnot. And then, I think a lot of people when they go to university for art, it's kind of 4 years of just little like stops and starts and bad art.
Yeah. Speaking
of myself, I did 4 years of art that looks absolutely nothing like anything I would even do today. And I hate it with all my fiber of being. And then I kind of came out the other side of, I got my bachelor's in illustration and I was doing practical, like, pen and paper, watercolors and acrylic inks work. And just doing like fan posters and stuff for horror movies for years. And they look completely different. I had a whole thing where I did hanging Halloween decorations shaped like Michael Myers and stuff for a long time.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah. Those were popular. But then I just slowly started trying out different stuff and using social media as kind of like a testing ground just to see what like resonated. And then I did an image that was, like I said, just trying to do, can I do a moment from a really cool horror movie like Noroi or Ghostwatch or something like that. And it's this digital drawing that's supposed to look like night vision. And it's like a bunch of trees with like all these different hands coming from beyond the trees.
Oh my God, yes.
Yes.
That was the very, very first one. And then I was like, if I just use like the character limit for Twitter and just use that as a restraint on myself to see what I can accomplish with that amount of words, just do like a little contextual, SCP style little blurb. Maybe I can make like an effective pairing of image and text. And then it had like a great response, like better than anything I've ever posted on any social media at that point in time. So I was like, okay. And I just kind of rolled with it just because the direction, like of the eyes it was getting, the fact that it was resonating with people. And then I had months and months where I was doing just like fully digital versions with like captions integrated into the imagery and just playing with different stuff. And then I was like, maybe what can I draw on top of a photo? And then I think that kind of took it to another level because it became like an interactive thing where people who followed me could send in photos that they'd taken of like their crawl space or their backyard or whatever. And then they had like a chance of me pulling it out of the folder and drawing a thing and like crediting them. So it became like a cool like lottery almost. And then that was a way of guaranteeing that I always had photos. So it wasn't just my neighborhood, because that was going to get boring really quick. And also people were into it because like, oh, I want to see mine. I want to see my house. And every time I posted a caption and then said like base photo credit this person, more people would be like, oh, I can send stuff in. There's a chance. So it became like this almost like perpetual motion machine a little bit, where I always had fodder to draw on. And also at the time I was working retail at an art store, and I would come home and want to draw something, because social media is very much about, unfortunately, constantly making art to stay on top of it. It sucks. It's the worst. But it became a really easy way for me to be like, okay, I don't have to draw a whole picture. I can kind of cheat and I can just take a photo someone sent me, and then I can just do my best and kind of like bone up on my shell, like how I can integrate like a weird creep into this guy's parking garage, and like how well can I make the shadows work in terms of how it would actually fall, and the lighting, and like the grain of the photo and the texture of the photo, and like just work at that. So there was like, a period of time where I was doing like 3 or 4 of those a night for like a year and a half.
Wow.
And, a lot of them weren't great because you have to work with the photo, and some of them like just will not lend themselves to that well. But that was kind of like a really good testing ground for that. And it did really well with people, which is really nice. And also it became like a really cool way to like just focus on creature design, just focusing specifically on making a unique monster that would stand out in that environment. So it became like this kind of perfect storm.
That's amazing. Actually, I was going to ask you, so what is your process for creating these characters? Because I know Siren Head is one of your big characters.
Yeah, that one blew up.
You have the upside down face dude, and you have the horse friend.
Yeah, long horse, yeah.
Long horse, who I love. So what is the process for you in creating these characters that are both terrifying and also kind of cute in a really fucked up way? At least Long Horse is.
Thank you. Yeah, I've heard that from a lot of people about a lot of them that are like actually super intimidating to me, except for Upside Down Face Man. Nobody likes that dude. Everyone seems to be really like spooked by that guy.
No,
which is
he
cool.
is.
Yeah.
He's scary.
Up until that point, it was really like very sketch heavy.
Mm-hmm.
And it became more of a thing like, let's see if I can just like jump right into the painting on top of the photo phase and just kind of like sketch on top of that and see if I can kind of come up with a design on the fly. So you'll see a lot of similar guys in my photos, like usually like long, tall, thin dudes, partially because that's what scares me, but also because I'm just kind of like going with what works a lot of the time, and just like using it for practice. But to answer your question, sorry, I'm rambling a little bit, is
no,
that
you're fine.
Okay. I just draw on top, like with no pre-planning at all, and just kind of use that as like, let's see what I can do just with no planning, draw right on top of the photo and see if I can make it look realistic. And then I always do the caption after the fact and use that as like something, okay, what can I write just without any pre-planning or a thought from the image I've just made with no pre-planning or thought, just to like as an exercise. And then once characters started kind of establishing themselves, it became easier to kind of draw lines between things and kind of making like an implicit universe where you can like allude to connections between different things. And that's just really, really fun for me.
I was going to ask, do they all exist in the same universe? And you think you just answered my question, but
they there's like 3 different this is all stuff I just think to myself and haven't really said, but there's supposed to be like 3 different universes. There's one where there's the really, really big guys. Every once in a while, there'll be like a giant kaiju-sized monster in like a mist, or like in a storm or on the horizon. And that's supposed to be in a world where giant monsters are commonplace. So the caption will always be like, it'll be like an emergency broadcast, like you would get for a tornado, but it's like this giant, like 6-legged thing on the horizon. It's supposed to be like they're like a natural disaster, like a hurricane or something else like that. And then there's the one where most of the pictures take place in, which is just supposed to be our world, where most people don't know about monsters, like the Upside Down Face Man, Cartoon Cat, Long Horse, and stuff like that. But then there's also like relationships, for lack of a better word, of like which monsters know about each other, which ones don't, which ones like tolerate each other's presence or not, or what. Where Long Horse is kind of like this ambivalent protector kind of character that like knows more about the other monsters, but the humans don't. So it's all very nerdy.
Long Horse is like Mothra.
A little bit like Mothra, or even Mothman.
That's why I love Long Horse so much.
Yeah, he's supposed to be able to show up before like a big disaster happens.
Can you please write a book?
Yeah, I wanna do that. There's some irons in the fire, but hopefully in the future.
I want either like a graphic novel or just like a compendium of all of your creatures, like field notes of all of them.
That is literally exactly what I want to do and have wanted to do since like 2018. I want to do a big coffee table book that's just like all the different monsters with like someone who's like been following and like scratching notes in the margins of paper and just like trying to like put this together.
I love that idea. That's it's like taking this is really nerdy, but taking Van Richten from Dungeons and Dragons Ravenloft and making a guide from. I love that. That kind of idea.
I don't know when it'll happen, but that's the goal, is to do that. And like a lot of the photo stuff I've done that I would have used in a book, I don't think is that good anymore. Kind of gotten better at it. So I would only use like 10% of it, but I still think I could like use that and then build it up. Just a big glossy book that I would want to release. I would love that.
I would buy that in a heartbeat.
I would too.
I could probably Kickstarter it or something too. I would love that a lot.
That's
would
amazing.
Donate. I will say because the thing that I really like about your art, and I'm just now again going through some of the pictures you have on your website, which we'll link to in the show notes.
Oh, thanks.
But just the idea of some of it is like walking down the street and it's dark, and while you're doing that, there's that thought in your mind of like, what if you turn the corner and there is just something otherworldly just sort of standing there, like, and that's what I think your art really encapsulates. I particularly love, and I'm really bad with monster names. I don't know what they are, but there's one that you have on your site that's like under a sewer grate, and there's a creature you see the head kind of popping out of the water, and it reminds me of like something you would see in a scary stories to tell in the dark type of art.
Oh yeah,
but it's like, I remember as a kid, I would like go look under sewer grates and stuff like this, and look at in areas that I probably shouldn't have been. And I always just think, what if I saw something? And that's what I love about your art in the way that it captures that sort of moment.
Oh, thank you so much. That's like exactly what I'm going for. And I think using photos of like really like almost mundane, like suburban and city locations really lends itself well to that. Because it's where you go. It's where most people are walking back and forth every day. You're walking to work, you're walking home from work. And like, I'm sure lots of people, I've thought about, what if I went down an alley on my way home and I ran into something? What would I do? And if I can trick your brain into thinking, it's in like a fight or flight scenario for like for a fraction of a second before they're like, oh, that brush stroke doesn't look right, or that, lighting doesn't quite match up. And I've done my job and I'm happy.
Well, and like especially with the photos where I have to like zoom in on them to find it, it feels like it is like found footage where you have to like look and really interact with it. You can't just like, oh, cool, like double tap and go away. Like you're really making people interact with your art in a really awesome way that I really appreciate. So
thank you. Yeah, I've been told that
scares the shit out of me a little bit when it's like not where I expected. I'm like, fuck, that's where it is.
Yeah, I've been told that like some of them, especially the ones where it's like hidden, which I need to do more of. I've focused more on just like, because it's a balance between showing off like a creature design you're proud of, and then also like making it realistic, so maybe it's a little more hidden, and then also like if you have to hunt for it, people really respond to that. Like you mentioned, it almost becomes like a still image jump scare, like from a horror movie, because you're doing it to yourself by like scrolling around through the photo, and then something pops out that you didn't notice was there the whole time.
Those are my favorite types of scares,
like evil Where's Waldo kind of vibe.
Oh my
yes.
Yeah.
So we could talk about your artwork for hours, but I guess we should probably talk about the movie you brought today, I guess.
Yeah. Well, it ties in with what I was speaking about a little earlier about the Anchor Bay clamshell VHSs.
Cool. So, Trevor, what movie are we talking about?
We are talking about Lucio Fulci's The Beyond.
Amazing. So, Lucio Fulci's Lucio or Lucio?
I could be saying it wrong. I've always said Lucio, but it might be Lucio or another pronunciation. I'm not sure. I think it's Lucio.
Okay, I'm good because it says you say Chow like that, so I'm going to say Lucio Fulci. Okay, so in Lucio Fulci's Beat the Beyond, a young woman inherits an old hotel in Louisiana where, following a series of supernatural accidents, in scare quotes, she learns that the building was built over one of the entrances to hell.
Boy, oh boy. So I didn't see this until like a few years ago, and rewatching it for this, I have to know, how old were you when you saw this movie, and what did your mind think about this? Because this movie is a trip.
So it's probably not one of the moments you're thinking of more than the others. It wasn't one of the super big gory moments, which there are many of in this film. For anyone who hasn't seen it, just like really gruesome film, as most of Lucio Fulci's films were. But it was one of those films where I think I must have seen them like a scene out of context when I was really, really young from my dad. And it's a scene in the film where there's a little girl. There's a character in the film who's a little girl who is at the moment in that film in a morgue. And her mom, this bottle of acid kind of telekinetically like drops and pours itself onto her mother's prone corpse onto her face. And the whole face just kind of liquefies and melts over this like slow motion sequence. It's like 3 minutes long. But it wasn't even that. It's this one shot where she's backing up into the corner and this like cloudy, acidy blood pool is just slowly spreading and pushing her back. And that imagery of specifically this little girl character kind of in slow motion being pushed back against the wall to avoid having her shoes engulfed in this syrupy, bloody acid mess is what resonated with me and scared the shit out of me when I was a kid, really, really young. And
do you know how old you were, or like around? I mean, when you say really young, it's got to be
like 6 or 7. It has to be like
Jesus,
6 to 7, 7 to 8. Like that's got to be the range tops.
Yep.
Because sorry, go ahead.
That's just the perfect age. I've decided to have a scene imprint on your mind, because that for me. I was like, I think I was 7 or 8 when I saw Alien, and the scenes in that just like sort of imprint in your mind. I really think that is like the perfect age.
Yeah, your brain is just this perfect little like sludgy sponge that just soaks everything up. Got to be really careful at that age, I think.
So it was this froth thing that was pouring toward her feet that like got you.
Specifically this bloody like cloud of goo that's like threaded through with white. It's just really disgusting. And then it bugged me for years, and I had no idea what it was from, and I couldn't figure it out because this was like, the 90s, and I just had no reference point for it until we picked up the clamshell on one of my outings with my dad. So it was kind of like, traumatic flashbacks for a second, just because I finally put that piece in and kind of recontextualized it. I guess robbed it of its like nightmarish power a little bit.
Do you know how you would have seen it as a kid? Is it just that your dad was watching him and you maybe came in at that point, or?
I think what happened was that my dad, at the time, was, he traded VHS tapes with people at work and also ordered tapes online from sellers at the time, where you could get like dubbed VHS tapes of horror movies that were harder to find, like Italian imports, different like Japanese horror movies, stuff like that. I would take advantage of this in my teenage years, and my first exposure to J-horror was through a bunch of bootleg tapes that some guy in like Minnesota or something done for me specifically for like $85 and sent in the mail.
Wow.
Which ones though? Which ones?
That I remember it distinctly. It was 4 tapes. It was Ring, Wild Zero, Battle Royale, and The Eye, which is a Thai horror film.
Wow. A great combo.
Right. Imagine seeing those out of context for the very first time. Blew me away. But I think a similar thing is what happened with my dad, where he had got his hands on a scratchy old copy of a copy of a copy
right.
of The Beyond, and I maybe had walked in and caught that moment in particular. Or he was showing me at that age. I can't rule it out completely. So either way, either I've blocked out all the really gnarly shit from The Beyond and only remembered this weird, like, out of context amnesiac moment, or I walked in while he was responsibly keeping me away from The Beyond and just saw that one little part until years later, when I was at least almost a teenager.
So when you rewatch it as a teenager, were there any parts that stood out to you that were scary? I know that you said the bloody acid pool wasn't as scary, but was there anything that stuck out upon second viewing or like first full of actual viewing?
Yeah, there's a part where a character who was introduced just to be horribly massacred, Joe the Plumber, is called in.
Joe the Plumber.
Joe the Plumber. He's called in to check out the flooded basement of the spooky Louisiana hotel that is built in the gates of hell. And he makes a hole in the wall where all this like sludgy sewage is coming out, and then like a rotten corpse arm like rockets out, and then kind of like fudges his eye out of its socket with like his thumb, just kind of pushes it to the side a little bit.
Fulci and his eye trauma, the way that eye pops out is so gross.
Yeah, most directors would have like had him squeeze the head and then have the eye pop out. Fulci has him like kind of nudge it out of socket with his like thumbnail a little bit. But yeah, Fulci loves eye trauma, and The Beyond has, I think, at least 2 different kinds of eye trauma, maybe 3.
Yes, there's at least there's definitely at least 2, because there's that one, and then there's poor Martha that gets like impaled on a nail and it pokes out her eye.
Actually, the same character who had his eye knocked out
Joe,
becomes a zombie who then knocks out her eye from behind through a nail through the back of her head. Yes.
Yeah.
So that one also scared the shit out of me at a later date. Less so because I was pretty hardened by battle at that point. But yeah, that one stood out. Oh, and the like 7-minute long slow motion sequence where a blind woman's dog rips her throat out.
Oh my God, thank you. Because that fucked me up. Wow. So this is the first time I've seen The Beyond. I'm I'm a Fulci novice. I've only seen one of other of his movies, and I was like, I was so excited. Like Emily, this woman who is blind, she's these milky white yellow eyes, thinking of eyes, and she's a ghost, right?
Mm-hmm.
She's a ghost.
Maybe.
Okay.
Well, I have a stupid question. Is she the woman from the very beginning? That's my dumb question.
I thought she was. No, it's not a dumb question, because I was thinking the same thing. I assumed that she was the woman from the beginning who was reading the book.
Oh yeah, she is the same woman.
Okay, that's what I thought. But like all the like Wikipedia summaries and IMDb summaries and all of them that I could find never really talked about her, and I'm like, I'm pretty sure that is that woman, but I wasn't positive.
My understanding is that it's the same woman from the beginning, and her eyes go all milky from reading the Book of the Dead or the Book of Ebon in that opening scene. And then she's in hell for the indeterminate number of years. And then she comes out of hell when they make the hotel open again. She probably crawls out of the gate of hell or whatever to try and warn them.
With her seeing eye dog.
With her seeing eye dog, which is then turned against herself by the angry spirits of hell. But this is all circumstantial evidence, and it's very like dream logic. It's very dream logic.
What I did appreciate about that scene, though, is the fact that, she sees no evil, and then her throat is torn out, so she speaks no evil, and then her ear is torn off, so she can hear no evil.
Oh, you're right.
Shit.
And then she goes back to hell.
I had I never caught that.
I was like, why are we tearing off her ear? Other than the fact that it's incredibly gory. And I was like, wait, her throat. Yeah. And it just sort of like came to me because I was like so hyper focused on why the ear is getting gnawed off by this damn dog.
That might be a detail where if you told Fulci, he'd be like, yeah, you nailed it. Sure.
That's what I meant. Exactly.
But
that's totally what I meant. And I just didn't mean to just rip off her and like her face and her body. Yeah. Well, and I was so like, I was writing notes. I was like, oh my gosh, yay, demon attacking dog Dickie. I'm so excited. And then literally I finished typing that note and then ripping out her throat. I was like, just kidding. She's not good.
The way that scene plays out is really, it's really well done because, she's walking through and there you see like the zombies all around her. She can of course see them. And then Dickie goes and kills him. And then he just bounds back and sits by her lap. And he's like, oh, what a good, oh God.
Oh, Jesus.
She just gets destroyed.
But so since we are talking about Emily from the beginning, I want to go back to the beginning because that opening is incredible. Incredible. Like Fulci does not fuck around with the gore. He is like, I'm not like, this isn't going to be a lore dump. This is just going to be you watching a guy get absolutely like massacred with a chain with a mob.
And that is the lore.
That's the lore. And that's, you know what? I love it.
Yeah.
And it's sepia toned, which is
I love that Fulci's like, he's like, fuck black and white. We're going to do sepia tone. That's what I love about this.
It's not that old. It's just a little. So here's some sepia.
Well, and so what I loved about the beginning, which is also the worst part about the beginning, is when like they just take him down to the basement and they hit him with the chain. His skin opens up, which amazing how they do those effects with like having that skin open up like that. And then instead of like, he just zooms right into the wound every single time, like every separate wound, the camera zooms in on it. And I absolutely love that because, I mean, like, it sounds fucked up, but here we are. Like, it's so funny because Fulci is just saying like, you like violence? All right, let's look at it. And it's just like shoving it in your face. And even though it's in the sepia tone and it's not as bloody or as like graphic as you may think, you kind of fill in the blanks. And it's just so graphic, and it's like Fulci's laughing at you when you're looking at it, and then his face is melting. It's just like, it's great. I just loved that establishing tone. He's like, yeah, no, we're just going to go right to it. Like, this is what the movie is, and that's what it's going to be for 90 minutes. And it's like, perfect.
He actually doubles down on that too. He like, there's 3 movies that are like his unofficial like Gates of Hell trilogy, which is House by the Cemetery, The Beyond, and Gates of Hell, which is also City of the Living Dead. And if you watch that one, I don't know if you've seen that one or not, but there's like, he really makes it explicit that he is like, you want to see some gore? Fine, here. There's like a part in that one where a zombie literally picks up a pile of like putrescent filth and maggots and worms and just shoves it in the face, literally shoves it in the face and rubs like in the eyes of like one of the characters. The message couldn't be clearer, honestly. Yeah, and if you think The Beyond's bad, you got to see City of the Living Dead. It's gnarly shit.
I have seen City of the Living Dead like a long time ago, and I don't remember much about it except that it definitely, from what I remember, it really like hones in on the surrealness of
it. Does, yeah.
This the kind of feel that this movie has. That one is like amped up from what I remember about it, and I've not seen the House by the Cemetery. I've not
House
seen
by the Cemetery.
One.
That's like his take on The Shining, almost, with this couple moving into this house, this like Baltimore house, I think it is, and there's like this mad killer in the basement that's picking people off. But especially Gates of Hell and The Beyond have this very like Lovecraftian cosmic horror energy to them that I really appreciate.
Okay, so since you brought that up, let's I wanted to dig into that. The book of Eibon. So that is attributed to the writer Clark Ashton Smith, who was a contemporary of Lovecraft, and he was one of the big 3 that wrote for Weird Tales, along with Robert E. Howard, who of course did the Conan, among others, and also Lovecraft. Have you ever read any of his work, or had either of you? I've never heard of him.
I've read one short story. At least I think it's by him. I could be completely wrong and like showing my ass here, but I think he did a story called The Treader in the Dust that is extremely, extremely good. Yeah, but I don't know if it's him. It might be him. Okay. But I've not read most of his stuff. No,
I haven't either. I've heard of him, but I don't think I've read any of his stuff.
Yeah, from what I'm gathering when I did research into him, like I really want to like go read his stuff now. Is that it almost seemed like he had a very morbid and sardonic way of approaching his work. There was a critic that was quoted on Wikipedia that said that nobody since Poe has so loved a well-rotted corpse. And I just feel like.
Hell yes. That sounds good.
That sounds perfect. And I know that he wrote stories within the Cthulhu mythos, and the book of Eibon is based on an actual book of Eibon that I guess belonged to a sorcerer in some of his writings, and it was basically like a book about his life. And I thought that was interesting because this definitely feels more Lovecraftian than I was expecting, or like that kind of cosmic element of hell, because like hell is definitely not the fire and brimstone in this movie that we're that the Christian ideal that people are saying. It feels like a lot more Lovecraftian or like cosmic in that way.
Yeah, it's like if Lovecraft had a realm that was just like infinite abyss of like decay and rot, like just this infinite rot is the cosmic horror.
Yeah, I was thinking about that, like with the painting from the beginning, because like, there's always this relationship in in Lovecraft's work between like artist and the cosmic horror. And so that was at the end when they walk through the gate of hell, it's not the hell that you would expect, but like you said, it's like this vast expansive wasteland of just rot and gray and sadness, and it relates to the painting. And there is this really interesting like the artist trying to capture the unknowable and like the maddening unknowable, which
the warlock painter in the start of the film that kind of haunts the entire film as a living corpse is a very Lovecraftian character. Reminds me of like characters like the musician like Eric Zahn in Music of Eric Zahn, which is a pretty good Lovecraft story, and Pickman's Model, which is about a painter who is painting these creatures from another realm, and how that doesn't really work out so well. So yeah, it totally fits. And I didn't actually know that the Book of Ebon was a Clark Ashton Smith creation, but it absolutely tracks that he would pick that detail from
and what I loved is that it was taking like Lovecraft adjacent, like it wasn't like a Necronomicon that is typically used in these types of stories. Like he's like, no, we're gonna go for a deeper cut and we're gonna grab the Book of Ebon. I love that.
It's really cool.
Now,
sorry,
no, go ahead if you have something to continue with that. I was gonna change the subject, so go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say watch Gates of Hell. It's great. A priest makes someone vomit up their intestinal tract. Go, that's all.
Fuck yes.
It rules.
That sounds amazing.
Yeah, a telekinetic dead priest that hung himself shows up as a ghost that teleports around, and he stares at you so hard that you vomit up your own guts and die. It's the best.
I mean, that tracks with Fulci, I would say. Like, his gore in particular is so goopy and so frothy and so chunky. Like, even when it's like supposed to be just blood, it's like it doesn't look like blood. It's like I can understand why in particular the scene of the little girl backing up, because that froth on the ground is not it's not like a typical blood stream that most directors would use. It is like this, I don't know, like they put it in one of those like
you can
machines
see you see like curds of like congealed flesh in it.
It's so
like,
disgusting.
It's horrible.
Now, I will say that I do have a bone to pick with you.
Oh yeah,
and it's the same bone that I've had to pick with a number of guests.
What's that?
It's that you picked a movie that has surprise fucking spiders in it.
God, I had no idea. I'm sorry.
Fuck that. Okay. Oh.
My huge, okay, I don't know what happened in that scene, because the moment the spiders came out, my eyes are covered. And I will admit this as a 40-year-old man, that I did not watch the scene because there were fucking tarantulas. But I could hear them, and the noises they were making was absolutely terrifying.
It's a really good thing you covered your eyes, I gotta say.
Yeah, so I was texting Terry, and I was like, how was the tarantula scene for you? He was like, oh, I didn't watch it. You're going to have to tell me what happened. So
seriously?
Like, that makes a lot of sense, because, Terry, are you ready to hear the description? Are you good?
I am, because you know what? I think this is like the second or third time I've seen this movie, and I forget every single time that there are fucking tarantulas in, because I think I blocked it out of my mind every single time.
The scene also comes out of nowhere. Like, there's no context for it.
Yes, fucking surprise tarantulas. It's the same thing as we watched Something Wicked This Way Comes with Cecil Baldwin, and there's all of a sudden tarantulas under the bed, or even a silly kids movie that we watched for Gory Corey that like all of a sudden there's a fucking tarantula. I'm like, no.
It's an easy go-to for a lot of horror movies, especially younger, like aimed at younger movies, I think.
Yeah.
But those spiders fuck that guy's face up. They just fucking, oh my God.
They crawl on his face and they rip off his bottom lip.
Oh.
Because he's paralyzed. He falls off the ladder. He's paralyzed. He can't move while the spiders move in on.
Yeah. So they rip off his bottom lip and they just kind of nibble. Nibble's not the right word. Kind of just tear at his face. They put legs in his mouth. It's just like it's all over his face, and they're just eating him.
They tear off a nostril.
That's nightmare fuel.
They pop an eyeball.
They do pop an eyeball. They do.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. They pop an eyeball.
Oh,
yeah, they pop an eyeball.
See,
and the sounds, like you said, Terry, the sounds are repulsive. There's like the squelching and like the sound of their legs. It's just like and it's all close up too.
Yeah.
So like you're watching these spiders up close just like rip off his lips
It's
and basically
even better.
eat his face.
They have a part where the spider goes into the guy's mouth to eat his tongue, and they cut to a shot of the camera under glass with the spider right on top. So it's like you're in the mouth watching the spider come in and to eat his tongue. It's great. It's wonderful.
It's so good. I mean, Terry, you would shit your pants, which I get. Like, it's not. It freaked me out, and I have no problem with spiders. So, Terry, you heard it. I think you got the picture.
There were
It's
a
a good thing I
couple
didn't
moments.
pick, Arachnophobia or Kingdom of the Spiders or something.
Arachnophobia is the reason this podcast started. That was the very first movie.
Oh, there we go. Okay,
That is my scarred for life story right there. The way this unfolded just was so horrifying for me because he's up there, he's looking at the blueprints and he's up on this ladder and I'm like, okay, so I'm taking notes and there's like, oh, he fell. So I'm like looking at my computer, typing, a little bit about how he falls. And I look up and all of a sudden there's spiders coming out of nowhere. I'm like, God damn it.
Every horror movie from now on you guys cover should just have a surprise tarantula scene. It just comes out of
I'm going to make a list of these movies. I would.
Terry would quit the podcast.
Because I did not watch the scene. I peeked a couple times, like, nope, it's still going. And like, there's one time where like it was obviously like a fake spider leg that was like touching something. I'm like, okay. So I looked up, I saw that, and I was like, okay, nope, there's a real spider there. I can't do it.
They cut between the pipe cleaner spiders and the real ones. Yeah,
pipe cleaner spiders.
They are literally pipe cleaners. Yeah,
I know, they're funny little legs.
Yeah. And there's somebody off screen just kind of like tilting them back and forth. It's great.
Fucking hell.
Fulci's effects, like the spider biting in and ripping off his lip.
Yep.
Like it just looks so good.
Sergio Stivaletti. That's his. He did all of his work, and he's very good.
So amazing.
He also did the effects work for. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, you go. It's totally fine.
I was going to say he also did the effects work for High Tension, which has some really good gore.
Oh,
really?
yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That makes a lot
of sense. That tracks. Thank God there's no surprise tarantulas in that one.
Yeah, just like right before the credits. Just some tarantulas.
Yeah.
Fuck you, Terry.
Oh my God. Instead of the Snyder cut. It's the Snyder cut. It's the spider cut.
No. No.
It's very good.
Every time a spider pops out, I'm always like, I just imagine the director sitting there going, fuck you, Terry. That's like what I imagine every single time because I can't handle it.
So is it just spiders or does it translate to like cockroaches or like other bugs or other?
I mean, I don't like cockroaches, but I'm not scared of them. No, it's spiders. Like they have plagued my mind since I was a kid to the point where like when I have lucid dreams, if I'm laying on my back, I see like spiders coming down on webs above me, just like descending on my ceiling. Or if I'm on my side, I'll be that kind of like a sleep awake thing where I will see a giant spider on like my nightstand and it will move behind something. And then of course I get up and like, I can't find it. So like, this is what we're talking about. This is why I can't watch these things because I'm like, I can't see these spiders eating a paralyzed person because then I'm going to start fucking dreaming about it.
Yeah, that's a wise move to skip that scene. Absolutely.
I just have to let you know that I said the spider cut and my fiance texted me from the other room. Boo.
Yes.
I
exactly,
appreciate
Steve.
It.
Boo.
But Terry, we should make shirts that say spider cut.
Release the spider cut.
Said he's booing me still.
That's a brilliant idea.
That actually is a good idea.
Yeah.
We won't put a spider on it because then you can wear it.
I mean, if it's a cartoon spider, I'm fine. That's the thing is that if it's not a real spider, like if it's a computer generated or it's a cartoon spider or something like that, I'm fine with it. The moment it's a real fucking thing, I'm out. I'm just tapped out.
If you made the shirt, you got to put a photorealistic spider on the back, like it's on your back.
No.
And then you won't have to see it, but other people can see it.
No, because what if it comes, Trevor, what if it comes alive?
Trevor, we're gonna commission you to make like a found footage spider thing for the shirt.
No.
Well, now you put it in my head, so I'm just gonna do it anyway.
Jesus
I'm
Christ,
sorry, Terry. I'm sorry.
Podcast over.
Both the episode
Spider
and
monster,
the entire podcast.
Sorry, this is the last episode.
Hey, we've had a good run.
We've had
Okay, transitioning away from the spiders though. When you brought up Jill, the poor little girl that's stepping away from the frothy blood, I was just thinking about how fucked up this movie is for her, because her father is Joe. Joe gets his eyes plucked out. He goes to the morgue. She goes there with her mom. Her mom says, "Hey, wait out here. I'm going to go dress your dad," which I don't know if that's exactly how morgues operate in the United States, but we're just going to go with it that they're allowing her to dress him up in a suit. She dies. The poor kid comes in, sees her mom's head dissolving, sees her dad's head like just fucked up and like blinded.
Yeah.
And then we go to the funeral where everyone is just like, "Oh, poor Jill, I'm going to give you hugs." And then they leave her alone and they're like, "We're sorry for your loss. Bye." Like, that's how that scene plays out. And I'm just like, Jesus Christ, what is she going to do now? She's a little orphan and no one is there with her anymore.
It's worse than that even, because she sees her mom's head melted and then she tries to hide in a freezer. And then some zombies bust out.
Oh, yes.
And then I think she's possessed.
I thought she was... Oh...
I think so. I don't know.
I thought she was dead because I was like, oh, the zombie got her. Like, she's dead.
She's either dead from that point on or she's possessed because she has the spooky contacts in.
Well, then she gets her head fucking blown off at the very end of the movie.
She makes her...
He just blows her head off. Like, I was like, I rewound it. I was like, holy shit.
I did the same thing. I was like, did I miss something? No.
You did not, no. She makes her gambit as a zombie to try and take him out. And he just, like, fully puts a fist-size hole through her skull.
And it just absolutely fucking explodes.
It rules. He shows it like a couple times, I think, in a row. He
does.
Yeah.
I think it was like the flashes of like one angle, another angle of just a child's head absolutely exploding like a watermelon.
Well, and that's what I was like, Fulci is not here to fuck around. He's like, I'm going to kill this kid. Like, you don't see that in horror movies.
I can think of 2 American horror movies that have ever killed a kid. Ever. It's not something that's done, really.
No. And I love it. That's what I love about this film.
Yeah.
It's definitely happening more, I feel like, too. I feel like people are now realizing, like, oh, I can kill kids.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Please, no one isolate that. No one isolate that.
In the 80s, I think it was like the Blob remake had a kid get melted. And then in the 90s, like a kid died in Mimic. And then... But nowadays, like, you see it a little more, I think. I just watched Attack the Block again recently.
Oh,
and some kids get fucked up in that movie.
I love it.
Well,
it's great.
Speaking of high tension, like, just that little kid just gangs the little kid with a shotgun.
Oh, shit. Yeah, you're right. I forgot about
in
that,
the cornfield.
That's right. At least that has, like, the discretion of them saying, like, it's kind of off screen. We'll just show the body kind of afterwards. We'll see a flash of the gunshot or whatever.
Hereditary.
Not Fulci, which is like him just zooming in at maximum close up to the wound blowing into the child's face.
Well, and up until that point, it's like she's tortured. She's probably the most tortured person in this entire movie, and that's her send off is having her face blown off.
And not even like a moment of like, oh, Jill. It's like they just run by her to go shoot some more zombies or something.
Right? I was like, wait, did that just happen? Because they literally just like, he throws the gun down because I think he's out of bullets and they leave the room. I was like,
okay, that gun, how many fucking bullets did he have? Because first of all, he's just shooting him off willy-nilly, and I'm like, okay, you have a 6-shooter, and then he's out of bullets and he's like click click click, and then the next scene he has bullets again, and now it seems like he has like over 20 because he just pow 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 pow, and I'm like, why, how is this the
best thing about that? Well, the first best thing about the last half of that movie is that there weren't supposed to be any zombies at all. They just the studio was like, oh, your movie Zombie did really well, make sure a ton of zombies show up. So all of that is just him riffing on that. The second funniest thing is that he keeps firing at the zombie's chest, and then he'll shoot it in the head and it'll die. And then he does that over and over, like 7 times.
He's so dumb.
He's so dumb. Okay,
and I wanted to my favorite moment of this movie as the extension is when they walked. Okay, they're in the hospital, running away from the zombies. They go through a door and they're suddenly in the basement of the hotel.
That rules. Anything that plays with liminal space, like time and space, it's just like the best.
Oh, it's so, and like that's so cosmic horror too, of just like playing with that time and space thing. And it's like, it's all of a sudden you're in a different place. It's not some like crazy like transition. You just walk through a door and then all of a sudden you're somewhere else.
That's amazing. And then that transitions right into the ending where they like literally end up in the painting or in hell or both.
But my favorite is when they go into the basement and then he just looks around and goes, impossible, over and over again. I'm like, this is impossible?
Yeah.
You have been fighting zombies for like 15 minutes and this is impossible? That cracked me up. Like between the gun and that, I was like, this man.
Everybody has their limit, I guess. But
that's impossible, but his unlimited 6-shooter is not impossible.
I was going to say the best thing with that gun, though, is that if you go back and watch, there's like a part where he shoots a bunch of zombies or whatever, and then he goes in the elevator with Catriona MacColl, the actress. And as the elevator doors are closing, you can see he starts to load the gun by putting the bullets down the barrel of the revolver. As a joke, I think, because he's laughing, and you can see the actress with him like looks at it and just kind of rolls her eyes and laughs at him because he's goofing around by putting the bullets down the barrel of the gun.
Oh,
it's the best.
I totally missed that.
Wow,
it's really, really, really quick. I've just seen the movie a lot.
So the things that I really do like about this film, we kind of talked a little bit about this, the surreal nature of the film, but also the use of empty spaces. There's like the scene where Liza is driving down an empty causeway, which I think is such a beautiful yet creepy shot where she's driving down it. And then she sees like some shadow in the distance and she pulls up, and of course it's the blind Emily and her guide dog. But it's that whole, there's no one else in this causeway. It's just her and Emily. And it's so creepy and otherworldly.
There's a ton of like little choices throughout of just like uses of slow motion and uses of like big empty spaces like that are so well done and just really lend itself well to this like the dreamlike atmosphere that he's going for in the film. I used to not like it so much for that, but because it's like, it doesn't make sense. I was a stupid teenager, but I really appreciate that stuff a little bit more.
Well, and Terry, I'm glad you brought up the causeway scene because I think that contributes to the setting being in New Orleans, Louisiana, and how New Orleans has this otherworldly quality to it. Like, have either of you ever been to New Orleans?
No, yes. I'd love to.
I have.
I've not.
Okay. So Terry, it's an amazing place, and it's spooky and it's energetic, and it feels like another world. Like when I went, I was like, I have been transported into another place, and I love it. But it does have this like, especially in this movie, it's like kind of got that like old house in the bayou trope, and when she's driving down that causeway, it feels like that kind of like seclusion in the middle of like a swamp type area where there's no one around and there's nothing to kind of protect you. And I really love movies that take place like in the South in swamps, so it really just added that layer of creepiness, and like, I don't know, it really was effective for me.
Yeah, I totally get that.
Going with that, Emily's house, where, we see it and it's lush and opulent, and she's in there playing a piano for Liza for some bizarre reason. But then like later, the doctor goes to the house and we see the actual house, and it's dilapidated and it's empty, and the brush up to it is overgrown and everything's covered in cobwebs. And it's that kind of, it kind of adds to that otherworldly quality of what are we seeing and what's actually really happening, that I think is such an interesting dynamic in this film.
Yeah, I always thought of it as like, as soon as they open this hotel, everything starts collapsing down on itself. All the rules of time and space are just kind of falling inwards into this like one point at the base of this hotel, just like spreading unreality, which I've always really liked about that movie. Gates of Hell has a similar quality, less so with House by the Cemetery, but those two especially.
I like that phrase, spreading of unreality. That's really cool.
Yeah. He's really good for that. I think he's a little underappreciated in that area where he's known for his gore because, his movies are gory as hell, and he puts a real focus on that. He like literally, spends half the runtime on the gore. But he has this atmosphere as well that I think gets neglected a little bit. That's really masterful.
Yeah, you're talking about that. I'm thinking back to the beginning with the sepia tone, where the first shot that we're kind of getting is these boats slowly moving through the bayou, and they're just the people in it are silent. It's dead quiet. All you see are this group of men holding torches, and they are moving towards the hotel. And then later on, there's a car that pulls up and unloads another group of men, and no one's talking. They all just have torches, and they have this mission. It's very dread-filled, and there are moments in this film that I think he kind of I think you're right. I don't think he gets kind of credit for the sort of masterful way he can build dread or a feeling throughout the entire film.
Totally, absolutely.
And this film is very fatalistic in a way. Because the movie opens and there's the painting, and then we have Emily who's she comes back and then she's killed again and brought back to hell. And I loved Liza and John's escape from the house, and they're ultimately transported back there and they're forced into hell. Like, this is a foregone conclusion at this point. And it's all basically the painting that Schweik, the painting that he created back in 1927. Like, it's there, and that's where we're beginning, and that is where we're ending, and it has that sort of circular fatalistic feel to it.
Absolutely. And then there's the question of whether we ever left the painting at all, right?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that's prime, cosmic horror. It's just like they're doomed from the outset. As soon as they set foot on the property, a very like you said, fatalistic cosmic horror kind of vibe. Yeah,
this movie fucking rules.
It's really good, right?
It's so good,
and it's not even my favorite of his top four movies. It's just really, really good, though.
What would you say are your top favorite of his? I'm curious because I'm not as well versed in Fulci. I've seen this. I've seen the City of the Living Dead, or I don't know, is it Gates of Hell? I like
Gates of Hell better, but the City of the Living Dead is the title.
I've seen Zombie, and I've seen Don't Torture a Duckling, and I believe that might be it for me. So what are your favorites?
My favorite is definitely Gates of Hell, but Zombie's really close behind. Zombie's a classic.
Oh, it's so good. I Torture.
Oh, yeah. It's one of the first ones I've seen.
A zombie fights a shark.
A zombie fights a shark, yeah.
Is that the zombie fighting a shark movie?
It is the zombie fighting a shark movie. I just know that
gif. Fuck yeah.
Yeah. City of the Living Dead, Zombie, The Beyond, obviously, and House by the Cemetery are kind of like his big four horror movies. And I actually haven't spread that far throughout. I have a friend on film Twitter and on Discord and whatnot, who becomes he'll watch one movie and then he has to watch everything that director has ever done. And recently he watched a Fulci movie, so he did a full Fulci watch, which is that guy has made 100 and some movies, and a lot of them are extremely terrible comedies. So he just had to kind of grit his teeth and watch 30 different Fulci comedies that are just absolute dog shit. But he's been very helpful for recommending ones that are actually worth watching. I like I said, the more traditionally horror, those four are his big horror movies. But he also has a bunch of good giallos. Don't Torture a Duckling is really good.
Oh, it's really good.
Different vibe completely, but really good. And I cannot recommend In Good Conscience New York Ripper, just because of how mean-spirited and vile it is. But I mean, if that's your thing, go to town, because that's a very mean-spirited slasher movie.
Well, you say mean-spirited slasher, and I'm like, on my watch list. We'll be watching soon.
You have been properly warned. I take no responsibility. You will need a shower. It's very bad.
Wow.
Yeah,
Sweet.
It's Maniac level grime, New York City kind of vibes. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So it's grime. Ooh, okay, cool.
It's a grimy New York slasher giallo kind.
But then we also have him doing Devil's Honey, where I believe that it opens up with a man playing a saxophone into a woman's crotch.
That is correct. That is correct, and that's what happens. Yep, it's about right. Yeah.
I'm sorry. Terry has said this before, but I forgot. And now just the image of a man playing a saxophone into a woman's vagina is the funniest thing I've ever heard.
Not only is it the key scene of the film, I haven't seen the film. That's all I know about it, is that this happens. But it is lovingly painted for the poster.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah. He also has he was a real kind of jack of all trades. He kind of has done every genre. He's got some really mean-spirited westerns that I've heard are really good. There's one called 4 of the Apocalypse. But for my favorites, it's totally City of the Living Dead and Zombie and The Beyond. And also has for the Cemetery.
Yeah, I need to finish this Gates of Hell trilogy.
Yeah.
So before we wrap up, though, I do feel like we need to talk about the score.
Oh yeah! Oh my God!
Yes,
Fabio
we have to talk about the score.
Freezy's best score, in my opinion.
You're correct.
Love this score so much. When I was looking into it, I saw that Rolling Stone in 2016 ranked it as the 11th best horror film score of all time.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm. It's amazing.
I love this score so much.
It was the first vinyl I ever bought. Was the score to this film?
Oh no shit!
Yeah. Mondo released it in like this really beautiful, like pink and purple fluorescent, like swirl kind of thing. That was a variant, and I had a friend buy a couple, and then I like paid him a little extra because he got one of the variants, and I still have it, and it's one of my prized like vinyl records. It's amazing. It's an amazing score.
It's so interesting because at the beginning I was like, this almost feels like a Western with this interesting chanting and with the sepia tone. I said, oh, this is a phenomenal, really strange tone that we're starting off with at the beginning.
Yeah,
and
totally.
It's really, and again, it kind of, it's jarring in the way that just like the rest of the film, it feels like almost out of time and space with the way it's like, you don't know what genre of like music we're going for. And it's just disorienting in the best way.
And then, like, there's some reprises of the main theme with that chant that are kind of like very melancholy towards the end, and some scenes with the blind girl whose name
Emily.
Thank you. Yes, that I almost like more than the main theme, but it's just a beautiful record, just a beautiful soundtrack.
What's weird though is that when they released it in the U.S. under the title Seven Doors of Death, they recut the film to a score by Walter Sear.
That's weird.
Yeah. They recut it, they took out every bit of gore, and they credited the director as Louis Fuller.
Louis Fuller, yep. Because they, I mean, there was a whole like range, especially in like the 80s, where Italian directors, they wanted them to sound more American, so they just basically gave them all American sounding names.
And they have like the cover for it was like this weird riff on like the Tales from the Crypt, like DC Comics covers.
Oh wow! Can you imagine
totally not
sold
fitting.
that? Yeah, can you imagine getting sold that and then watching this movie and being like, what the absolute fuck?
Yeah, the greatest example of that I can think of is when, I don't know if you guys have seen it, there's a French film called Eyes Without a Face. It's this very like lyrical, quiet, melancholy black and white film about a kind of this mad doctor he kidnaps women to kind of steal their faces to try and repair his daughter's face. It was hurt in a car accident.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
But that was released to the drive-ins of America as the torture chamber of Dr. Faustus, I think.
Wow.
Which is just not the title.
Right.
It's something like that, like the torture chamber of Dr. Sadism or something ridiculous.
The
like
horror
that.
chamber of Dr. Faustus. I just saw it on
Almost nailed it.
Yep.
That's the one.
1962 as a
which is
double
just-
feature
wow.
with The Manster. I've never heard of that.
The Manster rules, actually. The Manster is one of the most ridiculous titles ever, but it's really good too.
So, do we want to wrap this up and give The Beyond a score out of 5?
That sounds good to me.
Oh,
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I could talk about movies forever.
I know. All right. So, Terry, how many gates to hell out of 5 do you give The Beyond?
Oh, well, outside of the horrendous spider scene, I could watch this movie over and over and over again. And I realized that on this watch, I had to pause it because I went to do something else. And so I watched like the first 40 minutes and I was like, wow, I'm already 40 minutes into this. And it surprised me because like it felt like I had just literally started. This movie, I think, is paced incredibly well. It's paced
Yes,
a lot better than a lot of Italian horror films that you and I have seen over the last like couple months, Mary Beth.
Yes.
I think the pacing is phenomenal. I think the gore is top notch. I love the nightmarish feel to it. I love sort of the things that he's exploring in it. I think this movie is fantastic. I probably would give it 4.5 maybe gates to hell. I think out of 5. What about you, Mary Beth?
I agree with that. 4.5 gates of hell out of 5 for me. So it's like 4.5 regular gates and then half a gate for like a child or a dog or something.
Poor Jill.
One of the gates is just ajar a little bit.
the pieces of Jill's head you could fit through that.
God, ew. But I 100% agree with what you said about the pacing. You know, everything you said about, we've had some, one of our biggest complaints in watching Giallo and other Italian horror is that it drags in the middle. But when I looked up and checked how much time was left, I had 10 minutes left. And I said, this movie is amazing. Like, it's goes by really quickly. It's really engaging. And again, I'm new to Fulci, so Don't Torture a Duckling was the first one I saw of his. And it's got some like very minimal gore moments when this woman is getting whipped with chains, which is pretty graphic.
Yeah,
that's pretty graphic. But this was my first like full on gory Fulci movie, and I loved every minute of it. He is so talented in making you uncomfortable and grossing you out, but also crafting a fantastic cosmic horror film. Like, I never would have thought this was a cosmic horror film, but I love it even more because after discussing it, it really is like that really kind of like eldritch horror. So,
totally.
4.5 out of 5 for me. All right, Trevor, give the final word. How many gates of hell?
I also would give it 4.5. I think you nailed it.
Woo!
I don't think anything gets 5 completely. Gates of Hell. So I would definitely say 4.5. I think it's a classic. I think that it's essential viewing, especially if you're looking into Italian cinema, you're looking into surrealist cinema, or just want to see some like really wild gore. It has that for you. It's not even my favorite Fulci, which is saying something. Just how talented he was in his prime. I cannot recommend it enough. Pair it with City of the Living Dead for that prime, like dreamy cosmic horror vibes, peppered with just unbelievably disgusting gore, and you have a whole evening ahead of you. It's great.
Oh my god,
we need to do that.
That excites me that you said it's not even your favorite, and I'm like, I cannot wait to watch more because if that's because I love the Beyond, so I can only imagine that I'll love the other ones even more.
Have you seen Zombie yet?
I have not seen Zombie.
Oh my god,
I've only seen 2.
It's so good.
It's so good.
I know.
You're going to watch it. You're going to love it. That and City of the Living Dead. Oh, my God. So good.
Well, for a long time, sorry, this is a tangent before we leave. For a long time, I wasn't a big gore person, so the poster made me feel sick. Oh,
totally fair.
And then now I'm into gore, and then I just never watched it. So it was like in my head, I was like, I don't really want to watch something with like that person's head full of maggots, like falling apart.
Yeah, but now that's totally fair.
Speaking of which, I probably should have brought this up earlier, but watching this movie while eating chicken tikka masala was a bad choice, which is what I did last night. I was like, I have like a little bit of time before I have to do something else. I'm going to eat and I'm going to watch this movie because I need to get it watched. I was like, oh no,
amazing!
This chicken is looking like what is coming out of his face.
I'm glad you soldiered on through your meal, despite it being so disgusting.
I definitely had to like pause the movie for a minute and finish up quickly.
That's totally fair, honestly. Yeah, I mean, I can handle some gore. Fulci gore is that kind of gore where I can see the prosthetics and I can like the blood is that bright paint blood that I love so much from like the 70s and 80s. But when you get into the more realistic stuff, it just does nothing. I can't. It doesn't even touch me. I just don't have any interest.
Well, a lot of times I find myself thinking, how did he do that? More so than oh, that's kind of gross. But how did he do that?
Yeah, you appreciate the craft more when you can kind of see that it's fake, I think.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Trevor, for joining us to talk about The Beyond. Where can our listeners find you, and what do you have coming up that you can share or you'd like to share?
Thank you for having me on. First of all, this is really, really fun. I am on Twitter far too much at Slimy Swamp Post. If you want to see my art without all the bullshit that I post, you can follow me at Trevor Henderson on Instagram, all obviously. Other than that, what do I have? I have some projects I cannot talk about. I would really desperately like to talk about them, but I cannot. But other than that, I'm just kind of trucking along. I love doing cover illustration work for comics, especially horror novels. Your RPG, if you're putting an RPG together, want to do some artwork, design a monster, just hit me up. My email address, trevorhenderson86@gmail.com, or just hit me up on Twitter or Instagram. or wherever.
Cool. And we'll put all that information in the description of the podcast for everybody so you can check them out.
Amazing.
So listeners, you've heard from us, but we want to hear from you. What was your experience with The Beyond? What's your favorite Fulci movie? We want to know.
Mm-hmm.
So send us an email at scarredforlifepodcast@gmail.com, or you can reach out to us directly on Twitter. I am at MB McAndrews.
And I'm at Gaily Dreadful.
And of course, don't forget to follow the podcast on Twitter at Scarred Podcast.
And if you were this car that's idling outside my house, I want to shoot you. But if you're not, please don't forget to review, rate, and subscribe.
Thank you to Eric Power for our artwork. Thank you to Sean Keller for our music. Thank you everyone for listening. Please stay safe out there, but most importantly, stay creepy.
And until next time.
Won't somebody please think of the children? Won't somebody please think of the children? Somebody please think of the children.
Acast powers the world's best podcasts. Here's a show that we recommend.
What is The Briefing Room? It's a behind-the-scenes look at how the criminal justice system works and the lives of the people within that system. If you love true crime, well, these are the real people who do the job every day of making sure justice is served. Hi, I'm Detective Dave. I'm Detective Dan. Together, we have decades of experience in local law enforcement, a profession that we think is often misunderstood. So we're going to explore how to do it right, and we won't shy away from when it's done wrong. These are stories you'll hear nowhere else. Unique, frank, and unvarnished. From the team that brought you Small Town Dicks, this is The Briefing Room. Episode 1 drops on August 30th. We'll meet you in the briefing room.
Acast helps creators launch, grow, and monetize their podcasts everywhere. Acast.com.